The Midnight Gospel is one of my favorite shows of all time, and this is because this show takes a deep dive into topics like death and the nature of reality and spirituality that most shows would not want to talk about. You might say that other shows like Adventure Time and Rick and Morty hit similar topics, but I think those shows only scratch the surface. The Midnight Gospel is based upon real people's lives and real people's experiences of trying to find meaning in death, suffering, and a seemingly meaningless universe.
If you look at the world, what you see is things appearing and disappearing. And humans are a part of the whole of that. And humans appear and they disappear off the face of the earth.
One of the most talked about topics in the Midnight Gospel is death. In fact, 3 of the 8 released episodes are based around death. The audio used for episode 8, Mouse of Silver, was taken from a podcast by Duncan Trussell. And in episode 8, it's basically a discussion between Duncan Trussell and his mom, who has terminal bone cancer in real life. And the fact that this was a real discussion between a dying mother and her son was very much felt by the audience. And that authenticity is really what makes me fall in love with this show.
So, your death. Losing people to you is so painful.
It is.
In episode 7, Turtles of the Eclipse, the Midnight Gospel talks about how death in our society is often avoided. Whenever somebody brings it up, it becomes uncomfortable. But in episode 7, Clancy and Caitlin Doughty talk about how death is actually something that should be embraced and experienced fully, because it is only when we know that our death is imminent that we can truly enjoy our present moment, and that we should not take it for granted.
So the information you're talking about, acknowledging death is an inevitable part of...
Yeah, it's so freeing to accept it.
Annie, that is so beautiful.
My favorite episode of The Midnight Gospel is episode 5, Annihilation of Joy. And the reason it's my favorite is because it explains the nature of reality.
All the consciousnesses in the world are connected. Imagine like a giant net, like a glowing blue net in infinity.
Like a quilt?
No, more like a net.
Clancy talks with Jason Lube about the nature of consciousness and that all consciousness is inherently connected. The consciousness with which you are using to watch this video right now is the exact same consciousness that was used to make this video. It's that still awareness behind all of our senses that is the same. It is part of the same sheet of consciousness that every single living conscious being has. And Jason Lube in this episode describes this same consciousness with the metaphor of a net. Consciousness is the nodes on the net, but it's all connected and part of the same net. This realization that you are consciousness is essentially enlightenment, which episode 3, Hunters Without a Home, goes into depth on.
Spirituality has become so watered down that we think enlightenment is the be-all and the end-all of spiritual practice. It's the finish line. It's not. What we think of as enlightenment is the first step in a process that you are completely and absolutely in the present moment, just like whenever you achieve enlightenment.
In episode 6, Vulture with Honor, we learn how to become ultra-present and quiet the monkey mind, which is necessary for achieving enlightenment. But even if you're not seeking awakening, episode 6 does a great job of portraying the benefits of mindfulness and giving yourself time and space.
If you're caught up in your story, it's like living in a tiny apartment with just enough room for you and your little mattress. The moment you get a little space between yourself and your thoughts, it's like moving into a much bigger house.
By clearing away the thoughts that clutter our mind, we're able to make our mind a much more hospitable place. Everything about this show points to the beauty of the universe, whether it be talking about death, or consciousness, or quieting your mind so that you can see a little bit more beauty. The show does an amazing job of showing the intricacies of the universe and at the same time simplifying it in a way that's fun and digestible to the audience, but is also emotionally compelling. Whenever I finish watching an episode, I always feel very satisfied. They always leave me feeling entertained, but also knowing something new about the universe. The Midnight Gospel is truly a one-of-a-kind, unique show. It takes on animation from a completely new perspective and jam-packs it with existential truth. Although the show was canceled for a second season on Netflix, I will always cherish the one season that was made.
Reality actually has this quality of benevolence.
Yes. Right.